What is up, Refuge? My name is Austin. I'm so excited you have chosen to be with us here today. Where are you watching from? All of our weekly services are available on IGTV or on our YouTube channel, or you go to refugesherwoodpark.online.church to access our online service platform. Our online service goes live every Saturday at 7 p.m. Connect with us on social media. We are active on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We also have a monthly giveaway that we post on our Instagram so you don't want to miss out on. Small groups are back in full swing, and we meet here at Heartland Alliance Church on Mondays at 7. And these are groups for boys and girls from grades 5 through 12, so be there. Now, we're going to transition into a time of worship. And normally, worship is something that happens in person, so it may actually be hard for you to connect to worship on a screen. But remember, worship is something that happens between you and God. So you can just sit and listen or find a place where you are comfortable with singing along. This is a way for us to remind ourselves who God is and all of the amazing things He's done for us. And we just want to align our hearts with what He wants to speak to us today. So, however you choose to worship today, let that be the focus. Now, let's worship together.
Shadow Bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. And at your name still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, breathe. Call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. And I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name cannot be overcome. Death could not hold you. Veil tore before you. You silence the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival, you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
Hello there, Refuge community. My name is Cole, and I'm excited to be here with you today. If you're tuning in live, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself in the chat if you haven't yet? And if you're watching on IGTV or on YouTube, welcome here as well. Well, we're going to be diving into some great words from a guy named Jesus in just a minute. But first, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on what we're about here. Stuff like this service, worshiping like we just did, studying the Word like we're about to, it's really cool, and we can all grow and learn from this experience. But one thing that we really love around here at Refuge is walking in relationship with each other. If you need support in any area of your life, we're here to walk through life with you, whatever it is you're going through.
Many of us feel pretty isolated right now, and I know that you hear those words a lot. So I just want you to really listen to them. If you're like me, you're probably really ready for some precedented times. But I just need you to hear that we're here for you. Well, if you haven't noticed, we've been living with this COVID thing for a little while now. So we actually have a backlog of online services going back all the way to last March, almost a year of content. So if you're joining us now for the first time, you should be able to keep busy for a while if you're looking for more of these services. Well, we've reached the very last week in our series, The Missing Pieces. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, don't go anywhere. You'll still get a lot out of my talk today, but be sure to go back and check out some of those earlier messages. Jesus was an incredible teacher. People gathered for miles to hear him speak because when he did, you wanted to be paying very close attention. Something that I've always found fascinating about Jesus' teaching, especially in the Beatitudes that we've been studying, is that at first glance, sometimes it doesn't seem to make much sense at all. I almost wonder if Jesus did this intentionally because those who didn't really want to listen, who would say, "Oh, he's just speaking in riddles," it doesn't mean anything to them. But for those who truly wish to learn, to understand, and to follow Jesus, there was much wisdom to gain. Each of these Beatitudes tells us something that seems to be upside down. But for those who dig in, who really want to understand and become more like Jesus, there's much to gain today. And we'll start to realize that it's not Jesus who is standing upside down, but everyone else. As we dive back into our topic for today, Jesus has been going through, one by one, these missing pieces from the communities that we inhabit. Even the church, which is intended to be a reflection of Jesus, but is made up of imperfect people like you and I, is often missing a lot of these critical ingredients. And this can cause all kinds of hurt, like finding out that we've been grilling a steak without the meat or cooking a soup with no liquid base. Jesus is giving us a new perspective to the way that we do community, and we have a front row seat to our misconceptions. Over 2,000 years later, these are all still just as relevant. Well, our passage for today is Matthew 5, 10 to 12, and the words are going to pop up on the screen in a second here, but you can also follow along in your own Bible or in the Bible section on the live platform. Okay, let's read. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Okay, so the Bible sometimes uses some words that have a ton of meaning and context, but can sometimes go right over our heads if we're not careful. So let's take a minute and just define persecution. Why don't you give us your best answer in the chat, and I'll just give you a second to write your answers, okay? Ready? And go. Okay, so I'll give a definition that I found. Persecute, to harass or punish in a manner designed to injure, grieve, or afflict. Another one says to treat continually in a cruel and harmful way. That's a good one. I thought this next one hit it dead on. To cause to suffer because of belief. To cause to suffer because of belief. Whoa, that's pretty intense. And that's a general understanding of persecution. But the persecution that we're going to talk about today is that, but it relates specifically to belief in Jesus and his teachings. The most important thing that I want you to get out of this passage is its relation to all the passages that have come before it, everything we've talked about in the last 9 weeks. And I want to be sensitive because I know that we all experience things differently. But before we go into it, I just want to clarify what persecution is not. And I hope that you can hear this with an open heart. Now, persecution is not about having conversations about theological ideas on social media. In fact, it doesn't take place on social media much at all. It's not born out of any self-righteousness or shaming of anyone else that believes differently from you or me. It can be tempting to feel the need to correct and start conflicts in these areas, but let me be clear, this is not what Jesus is talking about today. If you or people you know have gotten caught up in this kind of conflict, I would encourage you to ask yourself what real change has come from it. Has the love and the kindness of Jesus been shared by you to those individuals? Maybe you've been hurt yourself by this kind of conflict. I just want to make sure you understand today that this is not the kind of behavior that we promote or value around here. We value creating an environment where the truth can be shared in love, building people up, not tearing them down. kind of like the Beatitudes that we've been studying. Now, persecution in the sense that Jesus is referring to today comes when we make a choice to stand for these things that we've been studying the past 9 weeks. When we live in a way that looks upside down to the rest of the world. Persecution is often a result of a heart that is not ready to change, that hasn't yet realized behind what might appear to be judgment, rigid beliefs or traditions or strict rules is really grace and mercy, love for them just as they are, and freedom from the grip of sin and death. Let me take you through all these attributes from the very beginning that we've gone through. The poor in spirit, those who realize their spiritual need for God and their hopelessness without Him. Those who mourn, whose hearts are broken by the same things that break the heart of God. Those who are meek, for their strength doesn't trample those around them, but empowers them to be better. Those who seek after righteousness, like they seek after the food and the drink that they need to survive, not because they believe that they are already righteous, but because they know they are not. Those who show mercy, who recognize that the greatest act of mercy ever demonstrated was done already for them. Those who are pure in heart, who seek to rid themselves of the selfish desires and tendencies that only hurt them and those around them. And those whose heart's desire is for God alone, those who make peace wherever they go, that serve the Prince of Peace Himself. And those, finally, who are persecuted. Why? Well, because when you live like this, it shakes up the reality that we think we live in. This is not the way we're taught to live. This is not looking out for yourself and what's good for you, following your heart, or going your own way. It is rather submitting your will to the will of the one who made you, who knows you better than you know yourself. It is to say, God, replace my desires with your desires. I don't know what is good for me, but you do, so make me more like you. And when you live like that, you are dangerous. When you live like that, the enemy puts a big bullseye on you and will do whatever he can to stop you. Why? Because you show the world around you the kind of life that we were actually designed to live. So Jesus says, rejoice and be glad. Why? For your reward is great in heaven. When you live for heaven on earth, when you realize that the things we hold on to so dearly don't have much importance in eternity. That is why persecution follows these steps, because the enemy doesn't want people to think about eternity. That is why persecution follows these steps, because the enemy doesn't want people to think about eternity. He wants people to think about right now and me and what do I want right now. Why? Well, I'm going to give you an analogy that will kind of further illustrate this point. Let's say you just won $1 million, okay? But you also knew that you only had 1 month to live. So how are you going to spend your money? What if you knew you were going to live for 6 months, a year, 50 years? How does your answer change as you look further and further into the future? Does it change? It should. We act differently when our perspective moves beyond the moment that we're in. Where you look is where you're aiming for. The target in your sights is what you shoot at. This is why the enemy is so bent on focusing on the right now. And why Jesus says, remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. When eternity is in your sights, you live nothing like you live when you have the next 5 minutes in your sights. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Well, we figured out since the first week in this series that the word blessed, which is used a lot in these verses, can also be translated to the word happy. Happy are those who are persecuted. Happy are those who suffer because of what they believe in. Why would they be happy? Because their eyes aren't on the life before them, not on this suffering that they're enduring right now. Their eyes are on eternity, on the one mission that Jesus gave us after He rose from the dead, to tell everyone that they can about Jesus and what He's done for us. Anything that they could go through is just a moment in comparison to eternity. And the joy that lies before them is so much more than the temporary pain of this life. Well, when I was younger, I really struggled to recognize this truth. I saw the things that were accused of people that believed the same things I did, how they were seen as judgmental, maybe not accepting of other beliefs. And I just wanted so badly to set the record straight and to say, no, that's not what Jesus is all about. To show them the true love of Jesus. But I was scared that I wouldn't have the answers that they were looking for. Scared that they would just treat me differently because maybe they think I thought less of them because of what I believed. And unfortunately, because of my fear, I didn't even give them the chance. But God has helped me work through some of that fear in my own life. But I wonder what may be holding you back in your own life. It might be this same fear that I had of losing friendships, losing status in your school or your friend groups, fear of being seen as something you're not. Maybe you're scared you don't have the answers. I'll tell you one thing, the times that I have chosen to speak up and live out the principles of these Beatitudes, to be an example of Jesus to those around me, well, it hasn't been nearly as scary as I thought it would be. In fact, it's brought me closer to God and His plans for my life. Yeah, I still struggle with fear sometimes, but the more I set my sights on eternity, the more I realize that there's nothing to be afraid of at all. Nothing that God can't handle in our lives. So I would encourage you, go back and read through these verses, Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 12, and ask yourself, what would happen if I asked God to help me live as examples of these missing pieces in our communities, at school, at home, in our jobs if you have one? How might your life change? How might God change the lives of those around me? What if we ask God to give us the courage to accept that persecution will come when we choose to live for eternity, for His kind of community, not for ours? Let's pray. God, help us to live like You. Help us to change our focus from this present moment to what's ahead of us, what You have in store for us, this great inheritance that we've talked about in past weeks. It's so easy for me to just look at the next 10 minutes, the next day, what I'm doing this week. But I pray that You'd give me a focus on Your plan, which is eternal, God. Help us to live with courage, to not be afraid of persecution, but to recognize, like we've just talked about in this passage, that we can feel blessed, that we're experiencing what You experienced on earth, God. Guide us through this week. I pray that You'd be with us and that we'd be able to meet together soon. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great week, Refuge community, and we'll see you next week.
I'm so glad you could join us this week. If you're watching live, the chat will remain open for 15 more minutes so you can catch up with those also tuning in. There are so many ways you can connect with us. We are active on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And all those links will be in the description of this video. Once again, our service goes live every Saturday at 7 p.m. and you can access all of our past services on IGTV and our YouTube channel. You can reach out to one of our team members by emailing us at refuge@heartlandalliance.ca or just reach out to us directly. Thanks for joining us this week, Refuge, and we'll see you next week.